As we enter this 5th week of this study on God's big story, I couldn't help but think about what must it have been like for the Israelites. I mean, here they are, God's picked them up out of Egypt. He saved them from oppression. He saved them from slavery. He's brought them into the desert with this promise of going into this land of milk and honey. This trip that should have been about 250 miles in no less than 2 weeks, for so many of them was going to be a lifetime, as they spend 40 years wandering the desert. And you start to think, God, why couldn't you have just picked them up out of Egypt and put them into the promised land? What was that 40 years about? Why did they have to sit there and toil for all of that time? And as I was pondering that, I was reminded of this summer when, like so many other homes in our community, we were faced with flooding. And I remember on Saturday night, we sat there just bailing water out, removing everything we could from the basement, hoping we could salvage whatever possible. And on Sunday morning, when the waters finally went away and we were able to mop everything out and clean it all, we took this breath and we were like, oh, we were able to save it. And it didn't take but a couple minutes for us to realize that it could never fully be saved, because the environment that it had been in all night had done so much damage to it. We started to realize that the doors were swelling and all these baseboards were starting to curve and bend, and that the water was just soaked into the walls. And that flooring that we thought was dry, water seeping up through. And we realized we had to start to tear it all out. We started to remove the floors and then the doors and then the walls. And what we were left with was the framework of what was once a beautiful basement. And once it fully dried out, we were able to start to rebuild. We patched the walls, we put new flooring in and created a foundation to build everything else up off of. And we brought in new furniture. And slowly that basement was able to become what it was intended to be again. And God's doing the same thing with the Israelites. See, all that time in Egypt had not just changed them because of slavery and oppression, but it taught them to rely on things that they didn't need to. It taught them to rely on themselves and their own abilities. It taught them to rely on the Egyptians for provisions. It taught them to rely on the Egyptian gods for power and promise. And God is using this time in the wilderness to slowly break down all of those things, to cut back the hazards that the environment that they had been in were starting to cause them, to bring them back to the foundation and the framework that He could build back into, to recreate them into the people they were created to be, the people that were created in the image of God. And I'm reminded that we're going through this same story. We've been saved, but He's not done with us. Slowly, God is starting to peel back all those broken pieces, all those damaged pieces that we're scared to reveal to the world, and He's making them new, recreating us into that image that He created us to be, recreating us in the image of the family that He intended us to be, one adopted in His image, one created in His image, the image of God.